Welcome to the debate.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Now, before we jump into things today, just a quick welcome to everyone watching on NFL Nexus. We try to keep things dynamic and fun around here, so please remember to subscribe to the channel.
Absolutely. And hit that like button and, comment down below on what you thought of today's analysis.
Right, and if you want to support us even further, become a channel member, you get exclusive content and perks, so just click the join button below.
Yeah, don't miss out on that.
Okay, so let's get into it. What happens to the concept of intimacy when the most private promise of your life requires a 1,000-person guest list?
1,000 people. It's wild.
Right? And not just that. Catering from an ultra-exclusive private club and a security perimeter that rivals like a geopolitical summit?
Oh, totally.
Today we're dissecting the recent, highly publicized wedding of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, an event held quite literally in the center of Madison Square Garden.
Which is, it is the definition of a cultural earthquake.
It really is.
Because think about it. When you look at a photograph of a traditional wedding, the frame is almost always designed to cut out the rest of the world, right?
Yeah, it's intimate.
Exactly. The architecture of a ceremony is built to shrink the universe down to a single room. It creates this moment of intense, deliberate contraction. But here, they did the exact opposite.
They really did.
They expanded the frame to the absolute limit.
Which is precisely what makes this so fascinating to me. Now, if you're listening to this, you might be rolling your eyes thinking, well, it's just a billionaire celebrity wedding. Why are we analyzing it?
Sure.
But the reason this matters is because it sets a cultural template. It shows us how we view privacy, connection, and spectacle in the modern age.
That's a huge claim.
But it's true. I look at this event, and despite the Madison Square Garden marquee, I see a couple desperately trying to protect their authentic connections.
Really? At MSG?
Yes, really. For me, this massive execution reflects a prioritization of inclusive joy. I'll be arguing that it was a macro expression of a very real micro-intimacy.
Wow. Well, I couldn't disagree more.
I figured you'd say that.
Because, look, when you scale a personal milestone up to the size of an arena tour, it inherently becomes a cultural spectacle. The intimacy simply doesn't survive that level of hypervisibility.
I think it does.
I'll be arguing that it doesn't. When you reach this magnitude, the event inevitably creates this gravitational pull. It absorbs and commodifies the personal lives of literally everyone in its orbit.
Okay, well, let's look closely at that scale, because I think the guest list is the perfect place to start.
Let's do it.
1,000 people sounds absurd on its face. I grant you that.
Highly absurd.
But we have to view the scale of this wedding not as an exercise in ego, but as a deeply pragmatic, almost defensive mechanism.
Defensive? How so?
It's designed to preserve relationships. Taylor Swift actually spoke about this on the Graham Norton show a while back. She noted her profound desire to avoid the stress of a small guest list.
Oh, right. Where people are placed on the bubble.
Exactly. The dreaded bubble.
Wedding, you know the agonizing psychological burden of the bubble.
Oh, it's awful.
You have to literally rank your human relationships to fit an arbitrary fire code head count.
Yeah.
You're cutting out childhood friends or extended cousins. But by utilizing their immense resources to invite 1,000 guests to Madison Square Garden, the couple bypassed that human suffering entirely.
By just inviting everyone?
Yes. They prioritized inclusivity over exclusivity. They didn't just invite A-listers, they invited their entire ecosystem.
Sure, but...
Wait, think about Ashley Smith. The sister of Chiefs lineman Trey Smith, she was the one who called the bouquet.
Right.
That is a deeply traditional communal moment happening on a massive scale. They used their wealth to ensure they didn't have to leave anyone behind.
Okay, I understand the desire to find a beating human heart in the middle of a stadium. I really do. But 1,000 people inside Madison Square Garden is not a community.
Why not?
Because when your guest list features Bradley Cooper, Gigi Hadid, Tom Brady, and Ed Sheeran, you are not hosting a wedding.
What are you hosting then?
You are hosting an industry summit. It's a networking event wrapped in white lace.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective.
Go ahead.
Think of this like a traditional hometown wedding, where the entire village is invited so no one is left out. The doors of the local church are thrown open. The whole town celebrates.
Yeah, but...
And there is a radical inclusivity to it. For Swift and Kelce, their village just happens to include Patrick Mahomes and Serena Williams. The scale is a product of their baseline reality, not a rejection of intimacy.
But a village implies a shared, organic, interdependent community.
They do share a community, just a very famous one.
But when you are standing at an altar, right, and you look out into a sea of 1,000 faces, many of whom are the most famous, highly curated individuals on the planet, people who command their own massive PR machines.
Sure.
The psychological dynamic of the room fundamentally changes. Intimacy requires a level of vulnerability that is, well, it's practically impossible to achieve when you are essentially performing a milestone for an audience.
I don't think they were performing for them.
A wedding is supposed to be a safe harbor. When you invite Hugh Grant and Tom Brady to Madison Square Garden, you are not creating a safe harbor. You are hosting the Met Gala with a ring exchange. The presence of that many high-wattage individuals absolutely demands a performance.
But focus on what Madison Square Garden was actually containing.
Okay.
The venue is just concrete and steel, and yes, the audience is filled with recognizable faces, but if you look at the mechanics of the ceremony itself, the core didn't change.
The core?
Yeah. Look at who was standing next to them. Jason Kelce was the best man. Austin Swift was the man of honor. These are their brothers.
That's fair.
This wasn't some heavily cast, curated celebrity bridal party designed for a Vogue spread. It was family. And more importantly, look at the emotional reality of the vows.
Right, the vows.
The reporting indicates that Travis Kelce completely broke down in tears as they read vows to each other from handwritten little books.
Yes, I read that.
You cannot fake that kind of visceral, emotional breakdown. That is raw, unguarded intimacy happening right in the center of the arena.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
You are attempting to separate the genuine tears from the highly produced environment. And sociologically, you simply cannot do that.
Why not? Emotion is emotion.
I am not questioning the authenticity of their love, nor am I saying his tears were fake. I am questioning the nature of the event itself.
Which was a wedding.
Was it? When your wedding features a highly produced theatrical Wizard of Oz meets Alice in Wonderland whimsical theme.
It was just a theme.
When you are eating food catered by Zero Bond, the ultra-exclusive New York members-only club, and when Stevie Nicks is taking the stage to perform, you have fundamentally blurred the line between an authentic life milestone and a curated performance art piece.
But why must those two things be mutually exclusive?
Because
if you are two people who literally make your living, communicate your deepest emotions, and exist in the world through performance art, why can't a performance art piece also be a deeply genuine life milestone?
Because performance requires spectators, and authenticity in its purest form requires witnesses.
That's a semantic difference.
No, there is a massive psychological difference. Let's look at the officiant, Adam Sandler.
A brilliant comedian and actor.
Yes, brilliant. And he gave the advice to just keep kissing, which sounds very folksy and grounded, but he also performed a comedic song at the ceremony.
Which fits his personality perfectly.
So the vows are deeply emotional, but then the officiant performs a musical number, and then a rock legend performs a set. It operates on the exact same structural mechanics as a Grammy Awards broadcast.
I think you're being a little cynical there.
When the medium is a massive theatrical production, the message is inherently spectacular. Regardless of how many tears are shed, it conditions everyone in the room to act as an audience reacting to a show rather than a community supporting a union.
I completely disagree with the premise that high production value negates a spiritual or emotional witness.
But it changes it.
Think about historical precedents. Throughout history, royal weddings, state weddings, grand cultural ceremonies, they have featured immense production, massive choirs, and architecture explicitly designed to awe.
True.
We don't look at a wedding in Westminster Abbey and say, well, the vaulted ceiling was too high and the choir was too professionally trained, so the vows didn't actually count.
I'm not saying they didn't count.
We recognize that the scale of the celebration is matching the cultural significance of the union. For Swift and Kelce, this was their version of a state wedding. The little books they held for their vows anchored them. In that moment, Madison Square Garden wasn't an arena, it was just the room they happened to be standing in.
But a state wedding serves a political function. It is meant to project power and continuity to the public.
And this didn't?
If this was just the room they happened to be standing in, they wouldn't have themed it like a blockbuster movie set. And if you build a structure that large, a state wedding, a cultural monolith, whatever you want to call it. It casts a massive shadow.
A shadow?
Yes. You can't just look at the insulated, inclusive joy inside the building. You have to look at the blast radius outside of it.
The blast radius? What do you mean by that?
Yes, the collateral damage. When you build an event this massive, it creates a cultural shockwave. Let's look at Kayla Nicole, Travis Kelce's ex-girlfriend.
Okay, let's talk about that.
They dated for 5 years. Hours after this massive Madison Square Garden ceremony concluded, she posted a very serene photo of a sunset to her social media with a simple 2-word caption. Look at her.
It was a beautiful, completely ambiguous post. She's just talking about the sunset.
Ambiguous, yes, but because of the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of the wedding happening simultaneously, that simple post was instantly consumed by the vortex of the event.
Well, the internet did that, not the wedding.
It became a subject of global speculation. People dissected it, debated it, and flooded her with commentary. We have to understand how algorithmic internet culture works here.
Right. Algorithms reward high emotion.
Exactly. They reward high emotion engagement, and nothing drives engagement like projecting a narrative of a bitter ex onto a massive celebrity milestone.
Which is incredibly unfair to her.
It is. Kayla Nicole has spoken openly about this, specifically on Angel Reese's Unapologetically Angel podcast. She detailed the online chaos and the intense hate she receives from fans.
Yeah, it's terrible.
The sheer magnitude of the Madison Square Garden wedding is what weaponized her ambiguous sunset post. It proves my point. When a personal milestone is inflated to the size of a Super Bowl halftime show, it ceases to be a private wedding. It acts as a public spectacle with real-world collateral damage for peripheral figures who are just trying to live their lives.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it very differently.
How so?
The public's obsessive projection onto Kayla Nicole is a symptom of a highly toxic internet culture, not a direct result of the wedding's design.
But the wedding fueled it.
We are talking about parasocial pathology here. This psychological illusion where fans feel a deep, reciprocal relationship with a celebrity who doesn't even know they exist.
Right.
These fans feel entitled to defend their idol or attack perceived enemies to validate their own parasocial bond. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift did not direct their fans to analyze Kayla Nicole's Instagram.
They didn't have to direct them. The environment they created did the work for them.
But that environment exists regardless of where they get married. If they had married in a tiny secret ceremony in a backyard in Rhode Island, the internet still would have stalked Kayla Nicole's page looking for a reaction.
Maybe, but not on the scale.
The parasocial pathology is the culprit. In fact, if you look at Nicole's post through a different lens, you can view it as a quiet assertion of self amid overwhelming external noise.
That's true.
By posting something peaceful and entirely unrelated to the chaos, just a sunset and an appreciation of nature, she was establishing her own boundaries. To say the wedding scale is at fault for the public's bad behavior strips agency away from the public.
I disagree.
And frankly, it strips agency away from Kayla Nicole herself, who navigated an objectively bizarre day with immense grace.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered that by deliberately choosing Madison Square Garden over a private estate, they intentionally generated the very cultural shockwaves that crashed onto Nicole's shores?
Intentionally? No.
Think about it. They are arguably the most media-literate couple on Earth. They understand the mechanics of visibility better than anyone.
Of course they do.
When you choose MSG, you are choosing to dominate the news cycle, the algorithms, and the social feeds of every person on the planet. You cannot ignite a nuclear cultural event, invite the paparazzi to photograph the arrivals of Dakota Johnson, Mariska Hargitay, and Hugh Grant, and then claim ignorance about the fallout. By making the wedding a public-facing spectacle, they ensured that the internet would be in a heightened state of frenzy. And in that frenzy, people like Kayla Nicole get trampled.
I push back heavily on the idea that they chose Madison Square Garden to dominate a news cycle.
Why else choose it?
They dominate the global news cycle when they go to a drive-thru to get a hamburger.
Fair point.
Their baseline reality is hyper-visibility. Therefore, their logistical choices aren't about generating visibility, they are about managing it.
Managing it by renting out an arena.
Yes. Getting married at a sprawling private estate sounds idyllic until you realize the terrifying logistics of their reality.
The security, you mean?
Exactly. It would involve paparazzi helicopters hovering overhead, drones trying to breach the property line to get a photo, and an absolute nightmare for the local law enforcement trying to manage the crowds.
Sure, the logistics are hard.
Madison Square Garden is quite literally a fortress. It is one of the few places in the world equipped to handle the security, the traffic flow, and the privacy requirements of 1,000 highly recognizable people all in one room.
A fortress? Okay.
What you call a spectacle, I call a highly pragmatic security perimeter. Inside that perimeter, shielded by tons of concrete, they were able to let their guard down, listen to Stevie Nicks, and cry over handwritten vows without worrying about a drone lens zooming in on them.
A fortress of privacy that just happens to host the New York Knicks.
Well, yeah.
I find it endlessly fascinating that the primary defense for a 1,000-person Wonderland-themed arena wedding is pragmatism.
Because it is.
But let's look at what actually happens to the concept of love when it is filtered through this level of pragmatism and scale. We are talking about a ceremony where the emotional beats are curated alongside zero-bond catering and celebrity musical numbers.
They're just elevating the experience for their guests.
It takes the secret and turns into the consumable. The fact that we even know the details of the vows, the tears, and the floral arrangements means that the fortress was not designed to keep the public out indefinitely.
Leaks happen.
It was designed to package the event perfectly for the public to eventually consume. The spectacle relies on the illusion of intimacy to sustain its cultural power.
I don't think it's an illusion at all.
Yeah?
No. I think we have to expand our strict historical definition of what intimacy can look like. Just because a moment is witnessed by many does not mean it is felt by few.
That's a nice thought, but
The profound emotion between two people doesn't simply evaporate just because the room is large or the ceiling is high. The tears Travis Kelce shed weren't for the crowd. They were for the woman standing directly in front of him.
But the crowd is the context, and context dictates meaning. You cannot extract the couple from the arena and analyze them in a vacuum. The arena is the message.
Well, I think we have clearly mapped the boundaries of our disagreement here.
We definitely have.
My position remains that the sheer scale of the Madison Square Garden wedding was an act of profound inclusivity. By utilizing their wealth to bypass the agonizing stress of the guest list bubble, they refused to edit their lives down to fit a traditional mold.
Right.
They embraced their reality. The handwritten vows in little books, the presence of their brothers beside them, and the genuine emotional breakdown at the altar reveal a foundation of authentic connection. It is simply a very real love that operates on a macro scale.
And I maintain that when a personal milestone is scaled up to the size of an arena event, it crosses an undeniable threshold into cultural spectacle.
I hear you.
The theatrical themes, the celebrity-packed audience demanding performance, and most importantly, the inevitable public dissection of peripheral figures like Kayla Nicole proved that this event functioned as an inescapable pop culture monolith.
Mm-hmm.
The venue and the execution inherently compromised the private sanctity of the moment, turning a sacred union into a highly curated exhibition.
Yet despite our opposing views on how to interpret this event, I believe we found a crucial point of convergence today.
We have.
Because regardless of whether you view this immense scale as a pragmatic, inclusive defense mechanism or a highly theatrical spectacle, we both agree that navigating deeply personal milestones under the crushing weight of global scrutiny represents a uniquely modern challenge.
Absolutely. It is a challenge that neither celebrities of this immense magnitude nor the people who simply exist in their orbit can easily escape.
It's impossible.
The internet culture and algorithmic loops that surround them act as an uncontrollable force multiplier for every single decision they make.
The boundaries between the private self and the public persona have never been more porous. And a wedding of this size, held in one of the most famous arenas on Earth, serves as the ultimate stress test for those boundaries.
It forces all of us to ask what belongs to the couple and what belongs to the culture.
Exactly. Looking beyond the superficial surface of these pop culture events allows us to understand much broader sociological realities about how we all consume intimacy
and how we project our own narratives onto public figures in the digital age.
And the source material surrounding this event offers fascinating, layered details about how people balance their private hearts with public expectations.
And there's undoubtedly more to explore there.
It really does challenge our preconceived notions of what constitutes a private moment and whether true privacy is even accessible once you reach a certain echelon of fame.
So to circle back to where we began today, when you look at a photograph of a traditional wedding, the frame usually cuts out the rest of the world.
It does.
But perhaps for a couple like this, the ultimate luxury isn't a private island wedding where the frame is small. Perhaps the ultimate luxury is being able to afford a fortress large enough to hold everyone you've ever cared about without having to rank their importance, lock the doors of the garden, and just keep kissing.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on The Debate.